Graham, I think you're muted.
Thanks, guys. Here I am. Sorry, I was wondering why no one was talking to me. Um, so real quick, it looks like for the most part we've got a lot of varying degrees of completeness. Some people have put in, half hour, 45 minutes, and we've got maybe a basic floor plan, or maybe you've got a little bit more than that with walls, windows, that kind of stuff drawn. Um, by the time we meet next week, I would like at least your floor plan and at least two of your elevations done. Okay. I'd love for all of them to be done. Some people already have that, and that's awesome. Um, but it's really the next week is about us building sheets to put our views on and about creating a section view. Now we'll work on the section view. I think next week we're going to spend more time on that section view once everybody has the content that they need to make that. If we do interior section views tonight, we'll probably look at the section itself, but not necessarily creating it just because there's a lot that goes into it. Um, that being said, we're going to look at the section, bringing it in, scaling it, and then we're also going to look at title blocks and how a title block works. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's go ahead and share this guy right here. And this is something, again, if you have let's say you have absolutely nothing, I want you to draw a 20-foot by 20-foot box, just a placeholder, something on your screen. So then that way, when we build the title block and we build the viewport, you have something that you can zoom in on. Okay. So again, if you have nothing at all, literally come up here, grab this square, type in 20 feet, tab 20 feet. And now I've got a square. I could hatch it. I could do something, but I've got something that I could zoom in on in a little bit. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to be building title blocks. It's going to look something like this. And hopefully everybody has access to them. So we'll find out. So I am going to delete this, and you'll see that way we're all together starting at the same point. And I'm going to delete this one as well. And we should just be left with something that looks like this, where we've got a model tab, right, which is where we've been modeling our model space. And then we've got a tab that says layout one. Okay. The layout one is just going to be there. You need a placeholder. It won't let you delete this fully. If I try to delete this, it will say, okay. And then I delete it and it's still there. Okay. So don't worry about layout one being there. Okay. But what we want to do is I want to click this new layout button. And I'm going to create a layout. And it's going to be called layout two. And I'm going to click on it and right click and come up here and rename it. Okay. And I'm going to name this plan. Okay. What we're going to be doing is building 6 different sheets, one for plan view, one for an interior elevation, and then 4 sheets that are going to show your exterior elevations and or other interior cuts if you don't have 4 exterior elevations that you're going to draw. And maybe you're in an apartment that doesn't have exterior walls all around it. We can use 2 of your walls and then we'll look at some interior stuff as well. So I went ahead and I typed in plan. And if you click off it, there it is. It says plan. But does this look good? Is this a title block? Anybody that's dealt with plans before, does this look like a title block? It doesn't, right? Okay, so this is just what's called paper space. This has nothing assigned to it. There's no title block. And all I'm seeing right here is a viewport. Okay. So real quick, I'm going to kind of go over viewports. If I click this viewport and delete it, now we're left with just a blank sheet of paper. Okay. And that's what we're going to end up starting with. So I don't care if you delete it or you don't delete it, whatever. But we're going to come here and we're going to right click on this plan tab. And we're going to come up here and click this from template button. So what that's saying is, hey, we want to take this paper space and we want to create it from a template. So if I click from template, I should be automatically prompted to the template from my file, from my AutoCAD file. And if you click this drop down, you can kind of see where that file exists. It's going to be in your program data, Autodesk, MEP 2024, right? Wherever it may be, it might not be MEP for you guys. I don't know. Okay, but it should take you to something that looks like this. If we double click into this AutoCAD templates folder, at the very top, we should see a folder that says sheet sets. If we double click into that, we should get 6 sheets. And we want to choose the architectural imperial sheet. So I'll go ahead and open that one more time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click open, and you'll see what happens. It's going to... What happened? Oh, down here, I want to create an ArcD. Yes, I do. And now I've got a new one, this new ArcD plan view that I created from here. Okay, so by right-clicking on it, all you're doing is starting a new one. You're not necessarily changing this one. That's why I was saying you could just right-click on the layout one and go to from template and then pull this up. So if anybody didn't get that, I'm going to walk it through it one more time. I'll go ahead and delete this just so you see that it's fresh. And I'll actually delete this plan one as well. All right. Okay, so now if we, again, so I want to right click down here on this layout one. I'm going to come up to this from template icon. Now, does everybody have that when you click that from template icon, does it prompt you to a template folder that Autodesk? Okay, so you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, right? Cool. So again, we're going to prompt you from the right here, right click. We're going to go from template. We're going to click into AutoCAD templates, click into sheet sets, and then we're going to choose architectural imperial and click open. It's going to come out here and say, hey, what do you want this to be named? ArcD is the sheet size, which is ArcD is 36 by 42. Might be. I haven't dealt with D in a little while. E is 38 by, or sorry, E is 48 by 36. I think D is 3642. Okay. So now we have this new title block that says, so it's got some sheet information in here. Again, all of it's going to be blank just because we haven't put in any info in it yet. But does everybody have something that looks like this for a title block? Okay. We got one, Mackenzie, Alberto, Rylan, Kat.
Yeah. I created a new one just to go along with you.
Cool. Awesome. Good deal. All right. So this is the tricky part, guys. And this is where I want to make sure that we're all paying attention and following along. So one thing that we saw earlier when I clicked on this layout one, there's this orange area right here is what's called a viewport. And it's allowing me to see all the different blocks that I have. Essentially, it's allowing me to see everything in my project. But I have to zoom way in order to see this. So what a viewport does is it allows you to see into model space from your paper space. So it's a viewport into your model space. So what I'd like to do is right now, this title block doesn't have any viewports on it. There's nothing that's saying, hey, can you look inside my model space so I can zoom in on something? It just doesn't exist yet. And that's fine. Okay, that is how most title blocks, especially in AutoCAD, I mean, Revit's a little different because you can drag views, but same thing, you're not going to get this pre-populated. Okay, it's going to come in as a static, essentially 2D drawing that is just line work on top of white paper. So what I'm going to do is I want to come down here and I want to type in viewports. And you'll see a command line come up that says viewports. And when I click on it, it will prompt me to make some new viewports. And there's a bunch of different ways you can make viewports. Okay. For us in this class, we're just going to keep it simple. We're just going to make single viewports. We don't need to make 4. We're going to just be putting 1 view per sheet. Okay. So we just need to build a single viewport. Now, once I click OK, it's going to have me start drawing this viewport. So when I click OK, I'm going to come and choose right here. You can kind of see that this has a chamfered edge to it, right? So this edge was actually drawn by, either a 3-point arc or a circle, but something that's revolving right around here is a center point. So I'm going to use that center point as my starting point for my top left corner. So when I click OK, it's saying, hey, specify the first corner. And so I'm going to come up here and kind of hover over this arc, and you'll see this plus come up. I'm going to go ahead and click once on the plus right there, bring it down somewhere kind of close to about here, maybe, ½ inch away from the bottom and the edge of the title block. And once I click OK or click enter, now I've got a viewport into my model space. Should I do that one more time? All right, let's go ahead and do that one more time. Okay. So again, we made the title block by right-clicking this layout. We're going to create a new one from template. And again, you guys have already done this. I just want to repeat it because I know that some people will struggle with it, and having a second round always helps. So if we go into the AutoCAD templates, we go into sheet sets, and then we go into architectural imperial. Does anyone know what that means? Architectural imperial versus architectural metric.
It's just our unit of measurement in the United States versus the rest of the world.
Exactly. So the imperial means feet and inches is exactly what it means. Metric is a meters based or centimeters based. Okay. So it just helps you set up what size, right? This is already set up to our standards. We're not using some, millimeters as our edge. This is a, 42 by 36 sheet. Okay. So again, architectural imperial is what we want to use. And we're going to go ahead and click open. It'll call it ArcD. And it won't let you rename 2 of the same thing. So if I had one of them called ArcD and I built another one, it's just going to call it layout 2-ArcD. It'll come up with its own naming convention. You can always come here, right click it, rename, and we're going to make this one plan. This next one I'll call I'm just going to delete it because I'll show you a trick. So what I want you to do is just have one title block, and we're going to create one viewport, right? So if I type in viewports in my command line and come up and click single, I'm going to click OK. Come find that top corner, which I like to use this, the starting point right here from the arced corner right in the center. And I'm going to make that roughly somewhere down here. Do I care if it's perfect? No, I don't. Okay. If we were setting this up for a company and we were going to use it 5,000 times a month, maybe that's a little different, right? But we're not. So now at this point, what do we have? What do we have in front of us? We've got a... You want to do this for the third time? Okay. This is the last time I'm building the viewport. Okay. Please pay attention. Okay. Right now, we've got a title block. Okay. If we type in viewports in our command line and hit enter, we'll bring up this viewports window. We're going to choose single and click OK. Once we click this OK, it's going to be looking for the first place that we wish to start our viewport. So if I click OK, I want to come to this top left where this arc is, kind of hover over the arc, and this little plus will appear, and I'm going to use that as my starting point. And then I'm going to drag this down. Again, I'm just clicking once. I'm not clicking and holding. I'm just clicking once up here, drag it down. When I'm at the place that I think is a good bottom right corner, I'll go ahead and click again, and it will create that viewport. Did that work for you? Okay, right on. So before we get any farther, I want to talk about paper space versus model space when we're in an actual paper space field. So right here, if we click this model space, right, we're in model space. There is no paper. We're not on a title block. This is our model space. But when we're in a title block, if I zoom in and out right now, it's going to zoom that sheet in and out, right? If I zoom way into this, is it really zooming way into that? No, it's zooming way into that sheet in that location. So there's two things that you need to realize if you're on the outside of paper or model space, okay? And so real quick, right here, you can see this says paper. Right? So this means I am on the outside. I am on the title block. If I double click inside this viewport, you'll see that now this says model space. And when I zoom in and out, this title block is going to be the exact same size, but it's going to actually zoom into the floor plan. It's going to zoom into the elevation we want to. So we could use a command like zoom window, which is Z, enter W, enter. And let's say I just wanted to focus on this interior elevation. I could click left, top, and then click the bottom right, and it's going to zoom me right in to that particular location. Does that make sense? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So if you make updates to this view in your model, is it going to update your...
Always.
Okay.
Okay. So the way that model space works, okay, and thank you for asking that. That's a huge question. And not only does it do it here, if you continue down with the line of my classes and you take Revit, it's the same thing, except not only is it in a 2D, but like if you delete that in 2D, it'll delete it in the 3D model. It'll delete it in the section view. It'll delete it in all the other views that are associated with that one element. Okay, it's literally gone. If you move it 6 inches over in your plan view, it'll be 6 inches over in your elevation, right? So it is accurately reporting what's in front of you. Okay, a great question. I thank you for bringing that up. So one thing real quick, this door, I kind of have this little, I don't know, there's some little circle here, right? Let's go back to my model space just to prove the point. Let's zoom into this door. If I delete this circle, it's gone now, right? It's no longer on that door. Will it be there in my paper space? When I go back to my paper space, there we go, right? So that's all it is. It's a viewport into your model space. So it's viewing the exact same items, whether it's in white or in black, right? The white is the paper, black is the model, okay? And if you double click inside of here, again, let's say I clicked in here and deleted that door handle. What do you think is going to happen to it when I go back to my model space? The door handle's gone, right? So anything you do when you're in paper space, but you're activated into the model space view, anything you delete, change, it will be in both the model space and the model space viewport on your paper space. I know that's a little confusing. Let's try it one more time. Okay. So this is an interior elevation. You know what? I called this plan. Let's go ahead and just change it over here. I'm going to zoom out, and using my zoom tool, again, Z, enter brings up all types of different options for zooming. So for this particular, when I'm putting sheets together, I really like to use this zoom window because it'll allow me to select exactly what I want to zoom, and it'll zoom exactly to that. It's not going to try to zoom way into a door or way into a window. It's going to show exactly where this square is. It's going to make that square as big as it possibly can be in that viewport. Okay. And when I look at this, right, I'm now seeing all my different dimensions, do I want grids on and off? I could turn that off, right? There's all types of things you can do to change the look of it. So now that I've built this, okay, we are going to do this again. However, instead of right-clicking this layout and creating a brand new one from template, right, where we bring in a title block, then we go bring in and we build a viewport. We've already got that done for us, right? So if we click on this plan right here, and it shows me, hey, I got a viewport on here, and I got my title block, let's just go ahead and duplicate this. So if we right-click this, and you click this move or copy, we can actually do this and say create a copy and move it to the end. And it will create an exact copy of this. It'll call it plan 2. And now I could rename this and call it north. And with a couple clicks, I could activate that viewport and zoom and just show my north elevation. Right. So once I create this viewport on the title block once, I don't have to do that again. I can just duplicate that over and over. Again, we'll do one more time. I wish you could create like 5 copies at once, but it doesn't let you do that. So you can just create a copy, move to the end. And then if you don't click that move to the end, it'll put it somewhere random. Not a big deal. You can always drag these left and right. But I just like getting in the habit of clicking move to the end, and it'll always put it at the last one. So I'm going to go north. I guess I'll call this one east. And same thing, right? Once I double click to activate that viewport, I can zoom out, find my east view, use my zoom window command, and select exactly what I want to see, and it will make it as big as possible in that viewport. Now you'll notice that one thing that AutoCAD doesn't do, whereas like Revit does, and the scaling will always, there's not going to be a scale that we put. Right here it says scale as noted. That means you're going to follow whatever scale is dimensioned out for you on this. You're not going to come and grab a 1/4 inch scale rule and try to measure this out. If you did that, it's not going to reflect something that is perfectly to scale. And that's just because of how this program works. We could go into that, but it's a whole different. Ultimately, we end up with these really, really tiny drawings on these big title blocks to get it to scale right. And most of the time, we don't even use it that way. So just allowing you to zoom way in, set this distance as 42 feet, that's really nice. Obviously, we could have it at an 1/8 inch scale and then have it look like that. And it's not going to be a lot of fun. It's not going to be super useful for us. So at this point, we'll just zoom in to where we need to go, and the scale will be whatever it needs to be per sheet. Okay, it's not like all the sheets are going to be a 1/4 inch scale or 1/8 inch scale or 3/16 scale. All right. So that is getting into the first little bit of title blocks and viewports and how to place these views on your sheet. Now, one thing I noticed with the sheet, and I don't know why it does this, but if you click on this, I think there's a couple copies of that title block on top of each other. So if you're trying to click into here to like edit this, you should be able to click in here. Come on. There we go. Now I could enter this as sheet 1 and it will fill out that that's sheet 1. I can put in the projects. But if you do see a bunch of extra ones, you can go ahead and just click one of them and delete it and get rid of it. Not quite sure why they bring in multiples on top of each other, especially when it's coming from AutoCAD's template, right? It's just sloppy work on their end. But I believe that this has 1, 2, there's 3 title blocks that are sitting on top of each other right there. And I don't understand why they do it, but you can very easily just click it and delete it. And now once you see 0, 0, that's the bottom sheet. And you could come in here, double click this. Let's see, double click right here, I think. Yep. And then we could come in here and enter any different values. So your plan view, we can make sheet 1, sheet 2, and we'll go over all of this in the next week or so, right? The biggest thing is just getting that sheet started, getting the viewport on there, and trying to start cropping your views so they fit. All right. So there's one more thing I wanted to cover tonight. However, I think due to the amount of information that I've put in front of you, I would rather us take some time next week to really go over sections. And I'm going to take a section and I will build it and scale it accordingly. So those of you that have already scaled their section, great, awesome. Those of you that haven't brought one in, I will be uploading a new scaled version to the module that we can download next week and use. But by the time we're done scaling it, we're going to be out of time tonight. So I think the biggest thing, guys, is really if you can get content like this done by next week, some type of elevations, some type of furniture, right? Your walls, your dimensions. If you can get that information in there, it's going to be a lot easier to start putting these views together, right? If you don't have anything in here and we duplicate this and I call this, and I call this south, but I don't have a south elevation, right? I'm in the viewport, but there's nothing here. There's not a whole lot we can do, right? So I really need for us to all get content so that way we can put this package together. My goal is by the end of next week for everybody to be 95 to 98% done with their final project. I do not want you waiting until December 4th to get going on this. This is the time. Okay, you guys are going to end up with finals for other classes, okay, in the next 2 weeks. Knock this out before that happens, okay? Because it is stressful when you've got modeling to do and it's due that night, right? You want to have all that modeling complete. So all we're doing now is, hey, I'm going to look at that. You could use a dimension here. You could use something here. If you want to get full points, we need to do a couple different other things, right? Like I want to give you the advice of where to improve your project, but if the content isn't there, I can't give you that advice, okay? So that is by far the biggest thing. Don't worry about your sheets. If you don't have all your content done, don't worry about your sheets yet. We'll do it again next week. Okay. If you do have it done and you want to put sheets in here, that's why we did the lesson, right? So you can go ahead and put your sheets in, get your viewports made, start zooming in. I mean, you can fill out all this title block information. Again, one thing, if you're struggling with paper space and model space and you're like, I don't know where I'm at, always look down here and check, hey, am I in model space or paper space? Because if you're trying to zoom in over here, but you're in model space, you'll never get there, right? You're just zooming in into that viewport, okay? So it's a little tricky. It's not super complicated, but this viewport is looking into the model space, whereas the outside of this title block is just sitting on paper space. It's like we're putting Pandora's box in the middle of, a sheet of paper, and now we can open it up and look inside and do all types of stuff. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Do we need the grid lines, or is that just personal preference?
The green lines?
The grid lines.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, you can turn and those will turn off. Okay, if you turn your grids and you turn, let's turn grid, and you type in off, and they disappear here. Let's see, they should. There. So it you can turn your grid off.
Okay.
No big deal. If that cleans it up, absolutely. If you like the grid, you can leave it. Okay, I don't have a personal preference on it.
And to confirm too, you're wanting a paper view for every elevation. Each elevation should be its own paper view.
Correct, right? So we're going to end up with 6 sheets at least, right? Plan, 4 elevations, and then 1 section cut, which we'll work on, right? Ultimately, the section cut is just an interior elevation, okay? And we'll work on that next week. Again, that's like the last of the things that I'm worried about. I want you to get all the rest of this content on there because you could get a 95% without this, okay? But you don't have some of these floor plan elements, and best I can give you is a 50 type deal. So we really need to make sure we got that content modeled in there before we progress and work on the more advanced stuff, and we don't have the basic stuff down. Any other questions?
So I got like on one of my plan views, I got it the way they use it with the zoom window. And then I created I did the whole copy thing, and I did another title block.
So
and
I'm gonna stop you real quick because I know where you're going. Okay. Sometimes your stuff might be too tight. So like right now, let's say I'm trying to zoom in on this south elevation, but I'm still seeing parts of my plan view. Is this where you're going?
Yep.
Okay. You might need to just go ahead and take this and move it 15 feet south or something. So now you've got an area that all you're seeing when you zoom in is just that south elevation. Keep it aligned still. Don't move it into some crazy quadrant. Keep it straight.
Hey, can you be quiet? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I said, whatever, when you move this, right? If I select all this, don't just do this. Don't move it and be like, oh, I just want to put it out here somewhere. Okay. We don't want to do that because now when I look at your sheet, these things are all over the place.
Right.
But move it straight south, straight north, straight east, straight west, right? And you can get yourself here. Let me grab that hatching too. And then I can just use my move command. I'll turn on my ortho and I'll just move it literally like, all those were hatched together. That's funny.
Yeah.
So, but you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
So maybe if that's the case, right? Maybe I need to come in here and delete that hatching and come back and hatch and hatch each one individually. Okay. I wouldn't try to hatch multiple walls at once. Otherwise they are joined by anything else that was created to hatch with it. Okay.
Right.
So.
Okay.
But give yourself space, right? Move. If you need to move it down, 15 feet so you've got enough room to get it a clean. I don't want to see that. That's what I don't want to see. That's slop, right? Like, I'm like, okay, here's the south elevation, but what the hell's up here, right? Like, why am I seeing? Now, if that was the whole thing in a butterfly, okay, or, that makes sense. But if you're only showing me just a cut of something, right? And it's just because, and it's not because it's intentional, it's just because of, okay, when I zoom this, right? When I do this, it's still in there, right? So just move it south a little bit and get it into a clean spot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could try to do something like this if you wanted, but again, that doesn't allow it to like center in the screen, right? If you're trying to, so the easiest thing is just to take whatever you have and move it just a little bit away from your plan view so you can get that space needed to zoom in and only on that particular view.
Okay.
Great
All right.
question.
I'll
Anybody
work on it.
else? About what? Copy and paste. What about it?
For example, we copied this south elevation
Uh-huh.
and paste on
No. No. So again, okay, that's a really good question. Okay. Let's back up for just a second because I want to make sure that we're all understanding this. This paper space right here, okay, whether you're in paper space or you're clicked into this model space, you'll never come here from the model space, take this, copy it, and try to paste it onto paper space. Look at how big this is making it. Ready? This is real life sized. Okay, so it is 24 feet compared to the 42 inches that. So if I do that, look at how big that south elevation is compared to how big my title block is. Okay, so if you are trying to paste that on top of it, that paper space is real life size. It is 42 inches by 36 inches. So when I place a model that's 52 feet long, the only thing that can fit on there is the left 3 feet of it, right? So exactly. So what the viewport does is the viewport allows us to view into model space. So we're just, all it is it's just a window. All it is a window for you to like look through, and now I can see this plan view. Now I can see this north elevation. Okay, but it's at the scale of whatever it needs to be inside of here without placing that whole scale on the sheet. If you try to copy and paste to the sheet, and again, that's why that section tag, when you brought it in, Daniel, and I think Mackenzie did it too, when you scaled that down, it was massive. And that's because it's all built that you need to place that in a model view and scale it. If you place that on this plan view, it would have been even bigger. So it just, sometimes you got to deal with scaling issues depending on how things were built. So, but that's a great question. Okay. Again, we're not going to be copying anything to the paper space. On the paper space, we're then building a viewport into the model space. Anyone have a question with that? I know it's probably a new concept for a lot of people. And it's probably one of the trickiest concepts in AutoCAD because it's like, well, why do I need a paper space and a model space? And why am I working in my model space when I'm in paper space, right? Because you can activate the model space while we're in paper space. So it is a little tricky, but the biggest thing you got to realize is just a window. It's a window for you to view your model space on your title block. All right. And here's the other thing, okay? If you're not getting this title block, right? Like if it doesn't make sense and let's say I come to help you next week and you're gone and you're like, oh no, I don't have any of this, but you have a completed model, I can still probably give you about 80% credit for it. Okay. So you're not going to fail this final if you don't have these title blocks. Do I want them? Are they a requirement for full points? Absolutely. Right. But this is going to be like 2 points out of your 20 is did you get your views placed on the title blocks? So there's a lot more than just, if you had all your title blocks but no content, you'd get like 2 points out of 20. If you have all your content but no title blocks, you'll get 18 points out of 20, right? So the biggest thing, I can't stress enough, content, right? That's what this whole class is about. We've been drawing walls and basic shapes since day one, right? So in order for you to present that on a plan, right, on a title block, we need to have that content drawn. And a lot of you have it, okay? A lot of you have a lot of good content. And And if you don't, you know who you are, right? And we just want to make sure that we strive by the next time that we meet. So that way we're not putting ourselves in a situation that we're scrambling last minute. You've got finals that are going on. You don't have time for this. And you end up with a 50%, right? I don't like giving it. That's why I give time in class. That's why we work on this together. Okay. All right. I'm going to sign off unless anyone else has anything. I'll stop blabbing at you.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you. Okay. And again, content, right? If you're not working on your elevation views, they are second priority to your plan view, right? Get that plan view drawn. Once we got that drawn, we can draw everything else off of it. But if we don't have that plan view, how are we going to even start to draw our elevations, right? How do we know where that window is going to go? How do we know where the door is going to go? So please help me out so you guys, so I can help you, right? I say this every year, and every year there's 2 students that end up in a position that they knew they could have avoided, right? And I'm giving you open time in class. Like, that's the thing. We're getting time to work on this together. So there will be class next week. There will be class the following week on the 4th. Mostly on the 4th is just going to be one-on-one, me helping you with little things that you need to dotting your I's, crossing your T's, that kind of stuff, right? Making sure all your dimensions are reading right. Everything's looking good. But all the content should be there after next week. Okay? Right on. Thank you very much for all of you that attended tonight. And I will see you guys next week, and I'll get this video posted first thing tomorrow. So then that way you can start on title blocks and viewports and all of that stuff. And we will go over interior sections next week. But yeah, I think we're on a good spot. So keep working hard. Thank you for all your effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Yeah, have a good night.